and welcome everyone to this month's user group. I appreciate you all coming in. The links to the presentation and the information around the user group is actually provided for you in chat. I have also got in there the link to the YouTube where the recording is going to be provided later on, either today or by tomorrow, generally within around about 24 hours as a rule. So thanks for coming in. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we actually meet today and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. I am on the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation. In terms of our code of conduct, I get that one right. Hopefully we'll all be a little welcoming and open, use the right and correct gifts, for example, in our chat, and be understanding that we all come at this from a different perspective so that we're patient and considerate of others. So thanks for that. My name is Kirsty McGrath. If you are not familiar with me, I'm an adoption consultant and sort of sit across that employee experience space. So what have I been up to? I've been having a bit of fun doing my cake decorating. Always like to, moving forward, always like to go through some of these components for you. That painting there is actually a friend of mine. She did some beautiful artwork, so I decided I would give it back to her with some artwork. And over on the right-hand side, my niece is non-binary, so that's the non-binary flag and the icon representing the non-binary in terms of gender. Over on the left-hand side, that's all kind of leftover cake. I put together my leftovers, and whenever they're available, hand them out to sort of friends and family, which they all do particularly like, and just some little jars handing around. Oh, thank you. So in terms of what's new for adoption, now, what I have been doing now, and I've been putting this at the beginning of the presentation to try and help you, is different things that I actually find. Some of it may not be new in content, but it may be new to you. So I'll help and support you on that one. This is where you're going to find my YouTube channel. It probably needs a new couple of updates in terms of the pictures. I now have, I think there's 4 of them, that Collab Talk AMA. So it's all things kind of Microsoft 365 will I drop in, and as well as there's some new adoption success videos that I've linked in as well. So go and have a look. The user group recording does go live up there, as I said, within sort of 24 hours, so that you can now go and read, watch, and it's all done in chapters as well, so you can jump to certain content. Now, Microsoft have actually got their sort of inside Microsoft Teams, some of the great people and content and presentations. So you'll be able to see it on there. We have talked about it before. I recommend this coming up soon. It's a live session. Of course, this is often, and those recordings you can kind of see afterwards, but if you do want to watch it live, it's usually in Microsoft that called PMT time, because it's with Seattle Redmond. But Virtuity is an app that's coming through in terms of health, wellness and care to be able to support the health industry and working with doctors. Highly recommend going and having a look at that. Some really good information and content there. The Champs Call, should you have missed it, the last one was in March, and it was very much looking around that hybrid people's first approach. You can go and watch it, and there's a presentation as well. If you do sort of go along that, it's kind of 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll often go if you're interested in that champs kind of piece. The next call is on April 26th, which is sort of April 26th, 7th, our time, when the time difference, so in the morning, okay? So if you want to join in. I thought it might be an idea to put in a link. If you're looking at different things like gamification and incentive apps, Microsoft have got a ton of really awesome Teams apps that you can actually go and put in. The link goes to GitHub. So it has then all of the content that you can drop in for free inside Teams. One I highly recommend, there's an adoption bot. So if you haven't actually seen it, it's got all 100 sort of commonly asked questions across 365 and Teams to be able to support you. Free, and it's just sort of a self-install to be able to put that app in. Okay. Now, off the adoption side, if you haven't kind of clicked around underneath resources, so in the resource center are different webinars that you can actually join in. There's the Q1 and Q2 for the OneDrive sort of roadmap and what's actually coming down the line that I would recommend you might want to go and actually have a look at. So there's some of the webinars that are coming up. Now, this one I do love. There are different demos. So they're physical demos that you can actually have your staff click through. I've taken and done a little bit of a gift there on Microsoft, the Microsoft Lists editing. There is one on getting started, and there's lots of other really awesome content. So these are physical click-through demos. You can actually take the link to that demo and go and drop it into Microsoft Teams. So maybe you have different channels on how to do sort of things, 101. You might add those demos in as part of teaching, learning, training, where they can do a physical click through in their own time, that difference between synchronous and asynchronous training, for example. Microsoft also have different podcasts and shows that you can go and watch. This is just some of them. There's a whole raft of different ones that you could go and have a look at and see what's actually available that could be a valuable value to you and your staff. Okay. There's also templates and different downloads that you could be dropping into the likes of Teams when it comes to employee onboarding. These are all kind of preset templates to be able to help and support you. Highly recommend go and have a little bit of a look. So there's some great ones there around, travel approvals and event organization and so on and so forth. Now, some of the different lookbooks and adoption guides, I've decided I'm going to bring some of them in, and these ones that we can actually discuss if you want to have a sort of a chat around the different adoption guides and where you're kind of seeing some of the challenges that are coming up. But I recommend going and having a look at the collaboration adoption guide that's gone up. It's not just about the tech, because usually you've got like a OneDrive or a SharePoint or a Microsoft 365 or a Viva or whatever in terms of different lookbooks, but one has gone up around just purely around collaboration, which I do like. So that's sort of a little bit more on the scenario-based sort of lookbook, which is great. Now, as I was clicking around and finding different content, I actually came across this OneDrive flip book by Microsoft on what's called Flip Snack, which I hadn't actually heard of before. A really great little lookbook around OneDrive. It's kind of that, flick through book with lots of different content. I saw it there in the roundup for OneNote, sorry, OneDrive, I should say. Go and have a look at it. I do particularly like it. On my travels, I also came across, Ellen has actually done a blog around who, or really kind of what in terms of the tech, is actually creating those folders in OneDrive. I will regularly get, when I'm teaching or training, I will get a user go, what's the notebook folder in my OneDrive? I didn't create that. Or Lens or chats, or so different technology actually auto creates folders in your OneDrive. So as part of your training, it's going to be really important with OneDrive and as part of 365 to educate on what does the different tech do. Because if they delete that folder, what will happen is when they go back into the app, it'll auto create the folder for them again anyway. So it'll keep dropping it back in there. So you might see some user frustration, and they could accidentally be deleting different content potentially. So there's a bit of a user beware there. So that's some of what's new for adoption. Now, in terms of what's new for Microsoft 365, often I kind of go, oh, I didn't think there was going to be that much. There was more this month, I think, than there usually would be. I think because February, with finishing on the 28th, a lot of the content came out at the beginning of March instead of in February. So we weren't covering off that content back in the last user group that I ran. So I've got probably some of them, I've got kind of double the content here. Let me work my way through for you. So what's new to Teams? In terms of search is coming up with some great new content and a bit of a new experience that's running across both Teams as well as even across Office 365, and you're going to see different components coming up. So now it's going to make it much easier to find both messages and different people and answers and files. It's going to be a little bit more intuitive, which is great. And there's a new all page, which is actually going to show all those top results for each of these components. But as you scroll down, it will also come up with different suggestions too, which I do particularly like. What's coming into Teams? Shared audio on the web, loving it across the browser. So now what happens is when you go to share your desktop, it will also share your audio, which is something we've had as a real issue when we're going to share our screen if we're going to go through a browser. So that is rolling out very soon. Now, the presenter modes, it's actually going to be moving in terms of Teams. You always kind of had them there under your share button and some of the resource options. It's actually going to have a new button. So in terms of changing that layout, keep an eye out on that. So if you do have screenshots in your training, that's actually going to change. So that will change a little, okay? What's new in Teams as well? Webinars. It was always a bit difficult when we created a webinar. It was not auto-generating that calendar invite and dropping it into the attendees' calendar for them as a reminder. So instead of you kind of dropping it in yourself and putting a link and or publicizing and trying to put calendars up elsewhere so they can download them, it's now going to automatically be provided for them as part of that attendee registration, which I do love. The other component that's coming in is the domain customization for that webinar communication. So you're going to be able to see some of the branding as part of the webinar communication. So you can sort of put in headers and all sorts of different things. And then once that user is registered, they're going to get the sender name and the domain. So now they kind of can recognize who it's come from, which was always a bit of a challenge in the past. It's like, well, what's this about? Who is it? Okay. In terms of meetings and some of the changes now that it's coming into meetings, there is an auto expiration on the meeting recordings, which is going to be really important, especially I'm seeing that across OneDrive. OneDrive sizes can potentially be blown out. If you're having a lot of meetings every week of which you need to record them, then the size of those recordings could fill up your OneDrive fairly fast. So they will be deleted automatically, and it's going based on Teams policy. Now, based on compliance and the expiration setting, a meeting owner will be notified about those expiration recordings, and they can extend the expiration date. However, those policies can override it. So something to take into consideration when you're doing some of the training around where can you find and what does it look like around your meeting recordings, okay? Now, in terms of our devices, there is an updated companion mode for iOS. The good part about that is when you walk into a Teams meeting room, if you're on your mobile phone and you do that whole walk in, the moment you transfer over into that Teams room, your audio is actually going to be automatically turned off. And then that way you don't get the echo, which I do like, because echo is one of those components that become very tough, especially for people that don't have a good headset. So we want to try and make sure that that's looking a little better for them. Now, in terms of devices, this one here, I believe it is on an Android. Yes, that's the Android. Okay, so we can now, as part of that view, we can view all hours of the day beyond the current scheduled meetings and events. So you can actually kind of scroll up and over on that. So that's the view on the left, and over on the right-hand side is the day view. And you can switch between the views. There's a little camera icon. Let me get my pen for you. There's a little camera icon up the top here on the right-hand side. So you can actually do a switch. So the new search experience on mobile apps for Teams, we saw it in terms of the desktop. This is now that kind of the new header up the top here. So you can see these headers up the top. So you can get some suggestions as you type. Those results will start to come in and they'll modify as the typing progress goes underway. Okay, so your meetings are now going to appear in that search results, which I do like, and you can scroll past the current into the future. Okay. The text predictions in Teams. So we had this on the iOS. It is now rolling out on the Android. So you can turn off text predictions if you need to. In terms of the pairing of a channel and a corresponding SharePoint name, in the past, when you actually change the name, like if you did rename, it was a bit of a danger zone because it wouldn't marry up in the back end. It is now here. It's taken a long time to come into play because there was a lot of complexity around marrying up the team to the SharePoint. Now you need to understand that if you had done a rename of that channel in the past, so the legacy channels where you've changed it, it's not going to fix it for you. It's only from here moving forward, if you rename it, then it will simultaneously rename the folder on SharePoint. So if it is not marrying up, because I've seen confusion for users when they go to the SharePoint site trying to find the folder because it's not the same name as what you've got in Teams, should you want it to marry up, if you change the name again, then it would flow through, but you probably would want to advise that you've changed the name on people, especially if they've been using it for a really long time. So, have to have some good communication there. So I've been creating some little GIFs so that you can kind of see, that name change and how you would change the name through the ellipsis button, okay, in terms of managing and editing your channels. Muting notifications during the meeting. So we can do it on a per meeting basis, but you can also turn it off as part of your overarching notifications. So there's nothing more frustrating than all those little, pop-up notifications when you're inside a meeting. So you can turn it off through the ellipsis in both places. Local time zone is being added into people's profile. I love this. We've just done the Microsoft MVP summit last week, of which, I'm up from like 1 in the morning. Well, that's when it starts, at 1 in the morning, going till 2 o'clock during the day. So the great part about that is you could actually see the time zone on the contact card as to what the difference was. So if it was 6 hours, for example, it would actually tell you in terms of those change zones. Okay. Now, pinning the chat messages. So we can quickly and easily pin access to sort of important content now and drop it in for ourselves and others. Okay. Now on chat and collaboration, the views around your chat, you can actually change it in your chat density in your settings from kind of that standard over to a compact mode. So when you do it, where you change it from sort of that comfy to compact, it's changing the spacing of the chat messages. So you're going to get a lot more on the screen. You get about 50% more messages, so quite a lot. Now, it will get a lot busier, so something to take into consideration as to how busy you want it, but that's easily done through your settings. Adding a restore option to the Manage Tags tab. Tongue twister, tags tab. So in the past, if you deleted a tag as an owner of a team, you couldn't actually restore them, but a restore button is actually now there, and you can restore up to 30 days from the date of deletion. So tell the owners of your channels that this is now available there as an option. So I really am liking that, because there's nothing worse than removing a tag, which a lot of people have used for a long period of time. Now, the Teams Connect shared channels, we've actually discussed this before in previous sessions, so I'm not going to deep dive on this too much. But those shared channels, there's some blogs now that have actually come out, being able to share with people external to the organization without having to create whole other teams. So you can do that now inside a team and have a shared channel with anyone internal or external as kind of a once off. The back end is going to give you whole brand new SharePoints, by the way. So it does disconnect, and you're not going to be able to reconnect those shared channels back in again, by the way. Okay, so keep that in mind. The what's coming to Loop. Darrell, I'm going to leave this one to you, considering this is you as a speaker today. But, just in terms of the fluid components, they're those live. It used to be called, fluid components. They're now called Loop. You're going to see these icons coming up all over the place. It was first launched and on desktop, Mac, Android, iOS, now rolling out into the web as well, which I do like. So you're going to start to see some consistency. And those Loop components are going to be able to be brought in across lots of different technology and Outlook and OneNote and Teams. And so you're going to see it flowing right, and Whiteboard as well. So you're going to see it sort of flowing through all of those. Looking forward to Darrell discussing this a little bit more. The what's coming to do. Smart due date. Now, I used to do a lot. I am loving this, that whole reminder and recognition. So, for example, if I say I have to do this tomorrow, it will actually come up in the date automatically for tomorrow's date. So it's doing a reminder and that repeating of information in a natural language, which I'm really loving, and adding it into the task for you. Okay. The forms portal page. Now, I don't have a screenshot of this, although I have seen it. There is some real changes coming in terms of forms and that experience. So the screen is adjusting around quite a bit. Something to keep an eye out on, especially for training. A lot of times we have got so very used to the experience changing automatically, and we may not even really notice. But if you've got training content, for example, you're going to have to really adjust it, because the users are going to see a different environment. They're going to be able to find those create forms and quizzes separately, where they used to be in the drop down together. It's going to then be lit up on the portal page in terms of some of the forms templates. Those tabs are being refined, and they're going to easily be able to find the My Forms tab. Another thing that I do love is, in the past, when you wanted to reorder questions, you had to do the arrow up, arrow down. Now it's got just drag and drop. I love that on the reorder. Now, OneNote, we are not seeing all of the changes that are coming to OneNote through the roadmap. As the two apps kind of, because you had your Windows version, the UWP version, and your desktop version, as they're starting to converge and become one, which is supposed to land sort of next year, as they all start to converge, there's lots of changes that are flowing into the desktop version from the app. Now, I'll try and bring these up as I see them. Sometimes you get very used to them and not realize that they're there. But the one I really love is page versioning has actually hit. So now if you've got older versions of a page, as you've made updates or changes, especially as you're collaborating together, you do now have page version. So I'm loving that. The ink to shape, it came in a little while ago, but I thought I'd bring it up. If you hadn't actually seen it, it's now in the desktop version, not just the app anymore. So you can do that lock to a circle or a square as part of your shapes. Well, I need to fix this up for you on the page. My apologies. But on the organizing your OneDrive, now your shortcuts, you can actually even drag and drop your shortcuts now into private files. Loving the fact that you've got shortcuts. It has been there for a little bit. The one thing I will say is beware on the mobile phone. I am finding that when you do a shortcut on your mobile phone, what can sometimes happen is it's not sort of recognizing that shortcut link. So I've had to go back kind of into my desktop and connect it to the cloud again, just go view online, not connect it, but just view online. And it seems to kick it back in terms of understanding. And then I'm able to access it again from my mobile, just a bit of an understanding of some of the behavior of what I'm seeing on the iOS anyway. Okay. The Sync Activity Center for your OneDrive, there is some updates in terms of the environment. It's kind of all flowing into that sort of fluid look and feel. So there's some changes coming there. You may not have even noticed, but you've now got your little settings cog is sort of sitting in the top right-hand corner instead of settings being down the bottom. So there's a bit of a shift around. You'll need to update your training content if you've got that screenshot in. The new 2 Yammer dark mode is now available both in the web as well as through Microsoft Teams. So that has flowed through, which I do like. The attachments on the web and in the communities app for Teams, it's now coming soon for a mobile app where you can actually edit the attachments in the post. In the past, it was kind of had to sort of delete and redo. That's not the case anymore. You can edit those attachments now. The notifications in community apps in Teams, so there's some updates coming in there so that you can actually see those notifications. I like it. In terms of, there's now more content and conversations available for you when you're looking at it through Outlook. So you can actually scroll down and those conversations, and when you scroll down, you're going to see more things that are going to be of relevance for you and of interest as you scroll down. Now, Q&A and, some of these pinnings we've kind of talked about a little bit before. There is a great blog that's actually flown through, which I highly recommend. When it comes to upvoting an answer, these are the things that we can kind of find helpful and appropriate. Now, this is both from the owner as well as those that are involved. We can upvote and crowdsource what is the useful answer, and so we can start to rank them. What we're seeing is, and there's a ton of statistics that are in that blog to be able to support you. So, for example, when you use a questions type post, so that whole Q&A, you're actually 60% more likely to receive a reaction compared to ordinary sort of everyday regular posts. The questions are viewed for a longer time frame than others, and they're viewed after even 2 weeks. So we're finding that compared to a standard post, people are actually kind of gravitating to Q&A a little more. So some great stats in there for adoption if you're trying to explain the why you would do Q&A over a standard post. Okay. That upvoting and how to upvote on the back of Q&A. So now we can do that whole marking the best answer. So that's just some a little bit of information around upvoting and the blog post around what it looks like to mark as a best answer to those Q&As. Bookmarking is back. It's like, yay. Okay, so now you can kind of bookmark any conversation or content and replies or nested replies for that, both inside Yammer as well as if you've got it as the community apps inside team, you can bookmark directly through there as well. Okay. And the mobile. So you can do it on the mobile too. Now, users need to be aware that inside Yammer team itself, the Yammer team, are actually doing some experimentation. So what they do is they run it for a few weeks. So they're trying to get some statistical significance sampling of their audiences. So they're kind of randomly choosing people across millions of users and doing testing by swapping or changing some stuff out. So they're trying to get some valid data. The downside is we don't know who is being selected for this sort of randomization of these experiments. So the downside could be you could be running some training, or you could be doing something, or maybe you're helping someone out or taking some screenshots, for example, and it could be different from you to someone else. That can be a little risky because they go, I'm not seeing that. And you go and have a look and going, why is your screen looking different to mine? Well, this is why. It's these random experiments that are kind of going on. So maybe in a bit of an idea to advise your staff that the Microsoft team are exploring different variations. So they might see something actually happening. Okay, so kind of put that out inside your organization as a bit of a be aware rather than a beware, a be aware. Okay. So what's new to Office 365? There is a real kind of a revamp going on office.com for both business and education customers. So your main office.com screen, if you've got this screenshot across anything really in terms of your user adoption, where you're going to have to update it, unfortunately. So there's a redesigned home screen. Again, we've seen this happen a lot over the years, so I suppose we're fairly used to it. It's more just updating our content. So we now have a quick access section, which I am enjoying. So we've got some of this quick access section to be able to help you around your content, to be able to support the users, to be able to quickly get around. There's a new My Content pane and a new Create pane. So it's as part of that to be able to easily see your apps in one place. The new whiteboarding experience and lots of different features coming to you. The main thing is, there's a lot of different templates that are coming down the line. I'm loving the templates in Whiteboard. We have discussed a lot of the Whiteboard changes that have been going on in the past. I'm not going to deep dive in, but Q2 is going to see some more improvements coming. So I've got some blogs there for you around what that looks like. The what's new to PowerPoint. Look, I am loving some of the changes that are coming into PowerPoint. I did just a little bit of a GIF here on the right. In the top right-hand corner of PowerPoint, you've got the record button. So this whole enhanced recording experience means you can record your presentation so that you can actually do asynchronous meetings or creating training content, even, for example, or maybe you're putting something on a kiosk. Okay, so different ways to be able to record and then export that in different quality as well. So I am really liking some of the different ways that you can actually push this content out. So the other thing that I love about this is we can, because it's in PowerPoint, really easily update the content without having to do a ton of recording, because you can just kind of fix that video sort of portion and then push it out in the export. So you can kind of re-export your recording as part of it. Okay. Now, and if I even go back, so down the bottom, when I'm talking different views, what can happen is, as part of Cameo, new feature coming soon, you can go insert Cameo. Now, Cameo allows us, as we're starting to create that presentation, to drop video into the presentation, and with Designer even make it really quick and easy, so we can see Designer coming up to adjust around and look at different ways that you could actually put that speaker video onto your presentation when you go to deliver it. Now, PowerPoint Live then enables it so that others can see that recording as part of the presentation. Good part is you could literally push it out and not even be there as part of the recording, because you've kind of done the recording inside PowerPoint, pushed it out as part of the previous live recording, which we were talking about, and run that in PowerPoint Live without even being there. It's kind of like doing an event in some respects, and then just be the moderator as you've got it running and looking like it's live. So I do love this. So that's coming fairly soon. Now, off the back of that, some of the other features, we've had Speaker Coach for some time now inside PowerPoint. If you haven't used it, highly recommend it, because it will give you things like how are you going on repetitive language. For example, do you say an awful lot? So, well, you know, if you do those kind of filler words, it will tell you the pace. At the moment, it would tell me, Kirsty, slow down. You're punching through this. You're going too quick. It's like, sorry, guys, I know it does go fast. We've got a lot of content to go through on the what's new. Monologue, for example. So if you're talking really and you're not adjusting your voice and going up and down, and it's, you know, so that sort of thing. Speaker overlapping, if you're talking on top of each other, pause, let someone else talk, kind of thing. So that can actually come up now inside Teams. It's generally going to be available very soon, and you'll get some insights around what that looks like, so you can see that going on in the GIF. Okay. Oh, I love this one. PowerPoint and the web, the fonts. You can now upload your font files. It's in your organizer assets library via SharePoint. Now what it's going to be there is a font picker in the drop down, so it'll render your PowerPoints correctly for the web. Finally, it's going to take a good 24 hours for those fonts to actually appear, but that is hitting right now. You're going to have it in the E3 and E5 tenants at this point. Okay, so it's only on those licenses for E3 and E5 for now, but loading those fonts for PowerPoint will make such a difference in terms of, I've seen a lot of very messy PowerPoints because those fonts are dropping off when it comes to the web. Okay. Now, Excel has had a lot happening when it comes to the web, which is really great news, because the web interface really needed it when we look at what it was a year ago. So a lot of stuff is flowing through really hard and fast on the web interface. Now, I have discussed a lot of the conditional formatting type changes that are actually coming. I'm not going to go back over those. I'll just talk about some of the stuff that's fairly new when you're looking at the what's new for the web in March. The function library is actually coming in on the formulas tab. I do like that. There is a new filter menu instead of just doing it, and we now have some of this search and the tick boxes so that we can apply that as part of our new filter menu. Love it. Inserting slices as well as those sort of tick boxes for your slices have come into play for Excel on the web, so you don't need to open it to your desktop to be able to work with your slices now. And inserting stock images and pictures from Bing. So we've got here some screenshots around, inserting images from online, from your desktop. It's also got those cut out, the peoples and stickers and that sort of thing. Okay, so you can drop those in as well as the online pictures. Now, in terms of the SharePoint roadmap, I love the IntraZone. They have a fabulous podcast on there and content on their website. I'm not going to go through all of this. Some we've already talked about, some we may not talk about in terms of relevance. I try to stick to sort of that end user adoption and not get too much into the technical, leave it to the technical SharePoint user group. So the main things that I want to talk about is that there is a new content sort of scenario in the My Feed web part for SharePoint. This will bubble up, for example, feed that's relevant to the individual user. So it's activities that are relevant to them as part of that broader comms site. So you can put it on your home site or broader intranet sort of inside Teams. So it all kind of ties a little bit into the Viva connections as well, but that is a web part to be able to support you. There are Microsoft 365 connected templates to be able to support you for your pages, lists, and the Power Platform. Those integrations into SharePoint, into Teams, so that when you pin them as a tab, we can kind of edit them now directly inside Teams. So there are different kind of parts as part of those templates to be able to help and support you. Now, this is that whole one because it was the 28th of Feb, came out on the 1st. I run the user group on the 1st, so I didn't have it in, so apologies, but this is there in the March. There is a new card that is sort of coming in as part of the Viva Connections dashboard that sits sort of within sort of SharePoint. So you can, as an author, boost those news posts so that you can highlight important announcements. So you're kind of pushing it up to the top of your news and comms feed for the company. Now, the Viva Insights, you can actually enroll your teams and self as having a focus plan. So this focus plan then enables the user to have sort of work uninterrupted time. Okay, so that will then start to see what's going on, and it will throw up suggestions to reflect different ways that you can be effective with your focus time. So you can kind of book and have it all flow through as part of the Viva Insights. And that can mean things like uninterrupted Teams notifications get silenced because it's part of your focus time. So you can actually create kind of plans. When it comes to your mobile devices, in the past, if you had information protected and encrypted documents, it became very difficult because your users wouldn't actually be able to access. But now on an Android and iOS, you're no longer going to be locked out on a mobile device because co-authoring is coming into play for that. So that's a rather important update, and where I'm really looking forward to that. It's all part of kind of that compliance center. Okay. When we go into SharePoint and we're going to create a column, you can now add taxonomy as part of it. So there's new manage metadata option in there. The great part about this, it means, is I'm not having to context switch to be able to move across different pages to be able to configure this now. So it's actually all there as part of the column creation. When we have a look at the SharePoint app bar, you're now going to have a create component as a part of it. So it's a new kind of plus button that's going to be there as part of that global navigation. This gives you the ability to be able to create SharePoint sites, Microsoft lists, and different types of Office files. Now, if you have turned it, like completely disabled it as a self-service for SharePoint sites, then it's not going to come up, but you will still have the ability for lists and Office files. When you go create a list, for example, it does jump off to Microsoft lists and you can then start to create it. So that's coming out around May. But that plus button is a welcome addition to the SharePoint site. Large folder deletions. When it comes to OneDrive and SharePoint, now when you go to delete a large folder, like this is over 10,000 files, which you couldn't do before. You had to go in and start to create the files to be able to to delete, I should say, delete the files to be able to delete the folder. You couldn't just delete large folders. That's not the case anymore. You can delete folders that have got a lot of content in them now across both OneDrive and SharePoint, which is of value, but at the same time, it's a warning because the user could delete literally huge folders. If someone else is deleting that folder at the same time you will get notification as well saying not available to be able to delete. The what's coming to SharePoint and OneDrive, pinning shared libraries. Now, when it comes to OneDrive and SharePoint on your quick navigation on your desktop, you can just do a right click and you've got a quick pin there, which I do like because of the recents list as well, and being able to adjust it and have sort of more places there. I am loving that because that's something I do quite a lot. And inside OneDrive and SharePoint, pinning. The Microsoft Stream improving the audio quality around noise suppression. So both the creators and the viewers can isolate all that ambient noise, so that there's a little noise suppression button. So you can see the noise suppression button over here on the right. What will happen is when it's turned on, it will actually do a little line underneath to say it is turned on. So that is available for all, even classic content that's migrated to Stream, as well as the new content. So that will be coming fairly soon. You can also have it so that it's turned on as part of the noise suppression overarching for all new. We can help our employees now do a bit of thriving in terms of this hybrid work. Microsoft have brought in sort of as part of the Viva Insights, an inspiration library. So what's happening is it's bringing in a curated set of content from like the Harvard Business Review and Thrive, and sort of some of the other Microsoft content. So we'll surface it for the organization so it can help around some of the resiliency, especially when we're looking at our current environment, especially the pandemic for the last 2 years, some of the things around well-being and culture and leadership. So that is coming in throughout April. And of course, this is across the Viva Insights. So it's around insights. Yeah. In terms of Viva Learning, Workday is coming in soon to the learning ecosystem. So there's some really great content providers now that we're seeing coming into Viva Learning compared to where it started. And there's more and more that are actually being added over time. So I'll try and keep you up to date on who are those learning providers as they drop in. Now, Microsoft Viva Digests used to be monthly. It is now coming in twice monthly. So you're going to have those digests flowing through a little bit more frequently. Please note that the users can unsubscribe if they wish to. If they don't like receiving that fortnightly, it's kind of not fortnightly per se, it's twice monthly. I think if I remember, they said it was on the 1st and the 3rd of the month. So that could be if you've got 5 weeks in the month, it will swap out and change a little, okay, 1st and 3rd. This one I love, the what's coming to Outlook, the RSVP. The fact that we can now do RSVP and say, are we RSVPing virtually or in person? I love. It wasn't that long ago. I had a meeting come through personally where they had said to me, here's the meeting invite. And on the day, they flicked me a message going, when you come into the foyer, give us a ring. And I went, I'm doing this virtually. We've had the last 2 years literally doing virtually. I didn't know that they had expected me to be there in person. So that was a little bit of a challenge, to say the least. So now we can start to see and be able to do things like book rooms even. For example, I have seen an absolute mess. We've lost some of the understanding around what it means to do the meeting. People are just rocking up to meeting rooms and they haven't actually booked them. And someone's already in the room. Someone says, I've booked it. And then another whole heap of people just go to rock up thinking the room is actually going to be free. We've spent so many years doing virtual. We need to come back and think about some of those core components around a good meeting and booking something like a room. So this will actually help us, because if we start, say, in person, we'll know we've got 2 people in person and maybe 10 online, and you'll need to have those video capabilities for your room. Okay, part of that hybrid work. terms of what's coming, this is a whole of kind of Office, Microsoft 365, Teams, Outlook. There's an update to the user experience around some of those capabilities and accessing different applications and Teams apps, for example. So for inside Outlook, and if you have the sort of the coming soon turned on to try it out now, you will see that apps like To Do has come in, for example, organization. So you can see all sort of the org people chart, as well as this little your apps plus button down the bottom, where it will throw up different apps for you to be able to access directly inside the likes of, and this was Outlook, and you can pin and then reorder them. It's also there as part of Office and in Teams, so you can start to see third-party apps now flowing through and being able to be pinned on those left rails, whether it's Office, Outlook, or Teams. So I do like that. It's good in terms of user adoption to be able to help and support customization. In terms of events and workshops, look, a lot of these are in person overseas, should you happen to be there at the time or you're thinking of flying over to them. As ones around the place come up, I will try and drop them in for you. Some of these are virtual, some aren't. Highly recommended going and having a look. The Teams conference last week was great. Go and have a look at the Teams conference information from last week too. Guest speaker. Sorry, I've taken a little longer than I thought I would, but let's get stuck into guest speaker, which is Darrell. Thank you so much, Darrell, for coming in. I'm really looking forward to having Microsoft Loop available and using it and understanding it a bit more around some of the why. I certain a lot of questions are coming up around that. What tool use when, what tool when, am I supposed to use it Outlook? Am I supposed to use Tasks? Am I supposed to use Planner? Or are we doing this in To Do? Or are we doing this on OneNote? Isn't this whiteboarding? I'm a little confused. What's Loop, collaboration, and untangling that? So I do really appreciate it. I'm going to let Darrell sort of introduce himself a little bit more. A fabulous contributor to the community in terms of being a Microsoft MVP, and some of his online content, including even regarding 365. Love what you do, Darrell. So I'm going to hand over. I'll let you share your screen. Okay, righto then. Thanks, Darrell.
Thanks for having me along, the Australian Microsoft 365 Adoption User Group. It's going to be great to be able to talk to you today about Microsoft Loop, and maybe some of you have experienced it and used it, some of you it's new to you, so we're going to get right into it and cover off some key concepts. First of all, I just wanted to start off with thinking about how we might take notes and collaborate together. Brittany and I, we've just grabbed a piece of paper to make some notes. We didn't have a whiteboard handy, but here we are on the bus stop and we've grabbed a whiteboard marker and we're just making notes wherever we can. We're trying to capture our thoughts and our ideas as we go. And sometimes when we're in a meeting, it's a case of, all right, let's create a OneNote, or your OneNote or mine. I'll quickly set it up and we'll share it. Maybe we're trying to find a common place to share, but there's all this friction to try and help that to happen. And Megan asked a good question here. Why don't we just take notes in the chat? And that's sometimes what we end up doing because it takes so long to start up a collaborative space to take notes and capture ideas. And that really gets at the heart of the need for Microsoft Loop, about dealing with ideas and capturing those ideas and starting those things without too much friction. So today we're going to be covering off 4 key topics. What is Microsoft Loop? What can you do today with it? We'll also look at when we can use Microsoft Loop and how to get started within your organization, and some key things around how we might help user adoption of it. So first of all, we'll think about why Microsoft Loop. I know that wasn't one of the topics there, but I do want to ask, why is it what was the need that we're meeting here with Microsoft Loop? Is it a solution looking for a problem? Hopefully that quick little video has talked about one scenario, but it's a wider scenario now as we're thinking about how to make it easier for people to work together. The hybrid work dynamic. And it's a thinking of when we work and where we work, and where does that work need to take place. So I'll go through a pretty familiar scenario that we are all probably attending online meetings. Sometimes we attend these meetings a little before work or early in the day. Then we may make some time to come into the office if our offices are opening, or maybe just to be able to meet in person and just get some FaceTime and collaborate together. Some of our workplaces are also using hot desking systems, so we make that time to schedule those spaces to work. Now maybe you've had your meetings in the morning and you want to head home to have some focus time. And there might be some people that have done the opposite. They have spent some time in the morning and they come into the office in the afternoon for some of those meetings and connecting with people. So there's a swapping. And then when you do get home, then in that focus time, you might also continue to work on global projects, and people will be working at different times and certainly from different places. So this is the thinking around hybrid work. What is it about hybrid work that are two dimensions that we can measure? First of all, it's about place, where we conduct our work, and also the time that we conduct our work. So if we go back over those key scenarios, we have our person who's started early in the morning and is connecting with people online and online meetings before potentially going into the office. So they are working in a different place, but at the same time with the people on the call, because it is real time. Then when we get to face-to-face and we might come into the office, then that is same place and same time, a place where we can work together. When we do have that changing of the guard, when I go home in the afternoon and someone else comes in the afternoon, then we have that swapping around. We've been working or about to work in the same place, but now we're going to be working at different times. And so this might be shift work. And I'll also be working remotely. And then lastly, I'll be working in a different place and a different time when I am just working in my own timing to get things done. And that might be a good portion of what we do today, that we don't have to work currently at the same place and at the same time to get work done. So thinking about hybrid work, this is where we're trying to make that transition of all of those different states easier with the tools that we have. And this is where Microsoft Loop does come in and help with that. Now, there have been some marketing videos and things that try to explain and set the vision for what Microsoft Loop is, but I want to say that it's a place to simply start. This is one of the key things about Microsoft Loop that takes away that friction of being able to collaborate and co-create together. You'll see examples here of people working together and co-creating in a loop page. They start to co-author things and add things together on the page. So this collaborating is all happening in something of a canvas, a page that brings different things together. We'll have a look at some of those things soon. It is also about collecting and reordering different ideas. So it's very much an open and fluid kind of way of working, coordinating our tasks, but also a place to continue. And that really leans into that last option we had there. We're working in a different place at a different time, where we can pick up from where we left off with the rest of our team. We're going to look now at what Microsoft Loop is in terms of an experience and an application. And today it starts in the area of components. Now, with a lot of applications that Microsoft release, it's usually an application. You can see a window, you can download something, and it's a minimum viable product. But with Microsoft Loop, they launched Loop Components first of all. This place of being able to add a component into a conversation that we have. And the product that they chose to start with was Microsoft Teams. So we today can add a Loop Components to a Teams chat. And as we do that and we share it with the people in that chat, then we can start to work together. Loop Components are considered building blocks, quick ways to start collaborating. And a few examples of that: when we do add a loop component to a chat, then we do have a few choices that we can start with. Here's an example too of when we do create that loop components and we add it to the chat, we can also add other loop components to that same space as we create it. So there'll be a list of all sorts of different components there, and expect that list to grow over time. Here's another example of a loop where we've got content planning for April. I've just started off with a bullet pointed list and someone's helping there. There's a few that are co-authoring. There's an agenda too that we've put there for a meeting that we might come together and discuss our ideas and prioritize them. And another example of a loop, we've added a table. And so this is a very functional way of adding items and then having information about those items in each of the columns. Great thing about a table is that you can reorder things, you can shuffle things around, and yeah, very, very functional. And a special kind of table, a tasks list. This is where you will have a checklist where you can literally check things off. You can assign those tasks to people by mentioning them and set a date. And I like the date in this because it gives me a relative time of how many days do I have left till that date is reached, or perhaps if I've passed that date, then how many days passed. So expect to see more of these loop components and quick ways to keep our collaboration, or start our collaboration and start to pull ideas together and develop them. Another thing about loop components is the speed at which they synchronize, and that you can share them in multiple places. We've got an example here of sharing a loop component across to another conversation, where I could start an idea with one person and then I can loop someone in, and they don't necessarily have to be part of the same conversation, but they can certainly contribute to the loop, and so I can share that across to a different conversation. We're used to seeing co-authoring in applications like Microsoft Word, and the strength too of a loop component is the speed at which collaboration happens. You'll see that floating cursor going across as people are typing, and it's very, very quick. Might I say too, it's quite an improvement on OneNote as well. Its synchronization is almost instantaneous. Now, if we are adding components to a Teams chat, then where do we find this component? We actually find it as a page, and I've clicked through here to where we can find that loop component in our OneDrive. And I'm not just going to stop there by having one component. I'm using the / and adding another component to that page. So even today, we have pages available for Microsoft Loop. This story, of course, will grow and continue. It is opening up a loop page in the office.com experience as we go through to our browser, but it is certainly a page. And for those of you who may have tried out the Fluid preview back when it was talked about in Build 2019, that this was the experience that you had. You'd go through to office.com and start to work with some of the components. Available today, and you'll be able to go through to that loop document or loop file and open it within office.com. And that leaves workspaces and the Microsoft Loop app, the full application that they did talk about and set the picture for what the future might look like. When it was first announced, it was talked about being available or arriving in the second half of 2022. With a lot of releases and announcements these days, deadlines do tend to shift. And so, question mark, maybe that deadline will be pushed out. We don't know. But that application, let's have a look at what that might be. Now, the videos that were released and talked about to show us what the Loop application might be, these are just renders, indications of what the future might be, but they pull together the components, the pages, and workspaces. So I'm highlighting here the component on a page. It's a table. There's also a paragraph there above it as well, and you can see people's cursors floating around to indicate where they're working and who authored it, who's currently in the loop page that is live. So here is our page. That's the body of that area within the loop application. And you can see just around the edges there the name of the loop page. So it's a lot richer than what we see today. You see up at the top right hand corner people who are working currently in the page, and that it is live. People are currently working. And if we just go a little wider, then the application will also allow us to organize our pages and related resources together in workspaces. And down the left-hand side, you'll have a familiar tree structure that we work with, and folders like we do within File Explorer or Teams and Channels. Then we'll also have that similar experience of organizing our loop pages into workspaces. And we can share that workspace with a group of people, and we know then that they all have access to that loop and the loop pages related content. So that's going to help us pull the loops together and organize them. And that is the loop application. Now I want to talk a little bit about some loop aware experiences that are coming, where we will be able to work with loop within the places that we work. So we've got an example here of loop on the left-hand side with Microsoft Teams, and on the right-hand side, it is in the new version of Outlook, which looks very much like Outlook on the web. And you'll be able to see it's the same loop keynote speaker and notes and ideas. It is all just embedded across and in that same experience. So we can work with a loop whichever tool we are choosing to use here for communication, whether it be Teams or Outlook. Here's another example of it. It is going to be available soon. It is currently rolling out to the Office beta channel, where people who are on the Office Insiders will be able to experience the new version of Outlook on the desktop and add loop components to it. There's experience there too with Whiteboard, which I haven't fixed up here on the slide, but that's also coming to Loop will be coming to Microsoft Whiteboard as well, and to OneNote. So what can we do today with Microsoft Loop? Well, I'm going to take us through a quick demo of some of the things we can do within Microsoft Teams chat. And today it is just private chat. It is not conversations within a team, in a team channel. And it is not conversations that we can have with people outside of our organization. So it's only private chats with people in our organization. This also includes meetings that have chat, and we are just having a meeting with people within our organization. So I'll step through some of these things. We'll create a loop component from a Teams chat. We'll take a look at the anatomy and point out some of the things about a loop and what we can choose to use it for and how to share it and see what's happening with it. We'll co-create with adding some ideas and content to it, and then we'll share that loop with people so that they can contribute as well. So let's take a look. Now I do have a couple of personas here that I'll take you through. Just over on the left there's myself, Darrell, and I am in a private chat with Laura, and Laura is over on the right hand side. And so I'm going to be swapping between those two as I begin to demonstrate. So just note here, I am Darrell starting off here in a private chat. Now let's have a look at this in action. The little unassuming icon that we're trying to use, Microsoft Loop, is right there at the bottom with all the other apps that we can use within a chat. So I can understand if people haven't come across it and used it as they look at that and they think, oh well, what is that? If I'm in this conversation here with Laura for a little while, and we say, hey, look, I've got some ideas, or maybe we're in a call a meeting, and add a loop component to the chat. It gives me a few starting points. So I could choose a bulleted list, a paragraph. I could go straight through into a table. One thing I want to say about this experience is you don't have to make any significant choices now. You can add any of these other types of loops later once you've begun to collaborate with Laura. So don't get too hung up on that. But I think really more importantly is about trying to share this loop quickly with Laura so we can just start capturing our ideas, because that's the point. Simply getting started and not taking too much time to get to that point. So I would often start by a bulleted list if we're listing ideas, or even just a paragraph. I'm going to start with a paragraph. So adding that, what you will see if I just switch over to Laura, currently Laura does not see that. So that's something to note. She's not going to see anything until I send this loop. All right, we'll switch back to me. You can see that I can add a title, so we're going to do that. We'll say notes and ideas from, what's the date today? April 10. And then there's my paragraph. So that's where I can start to type and put some words in it. I'm not going to do that now. I don't want to keep Laura waiting. But main thing here is by giving it a title, that's going to become the name of the loop file when it's saved. And because it's in private chat and I've started the loop, then it's going to save it to my OneDrive. We'll talk a bit about that later on. Other things that I can do, I want to be able to control whether Laura can share this loop with other people outside of my chat or not. Now, I'm going to leave it for my default here that she could share it with other people in the organization. She can copy the link once it's been shared with her, and that can be shared onto another person that we're going to demonstrate with soon too. But if I wanted to limit it to just the people in my chat, then I can say people currently in this chat. And that way it's only between Laura and I, and she can't share that on. So familiar permissions there, familiar box. Note too that the option is grayed out for anyone with a link. Now that is, excuse me, it's not just because my organization might have turned off the ability to share with anyone anonymously, but today you can't share with people outside of your organization. And so this is grayed out for now. So we'll leave it as it is and we will send it. Note here too, I'm the only one in the loop. So I'll send that now. And you'll see we would have seen there that it briefly said the words loop component. But because the loop is able to be shared and embedded in a Teams conversation here in a private chat, then it immediately embeds. And because Laura is awake and over here, let's just jump over to see Laura. Then Laura also sees the loop here too. So she can see that I'm in it, and I can also see that she is in the loop as well. So cool, that means that we can start getting into listing our ideas, and there are no delays really. Just maybe a little delay around what am I going to call this loop as I go to send it. Generally what I do is I title my loop after the meeting that we've had. I might add in a date as well. If you start to use some common names like Notes with Laura and then you do that again, well, it's going to duplicate, isn't it? Because there's a file probably there from the last time that you called it Notes with Laura. So that's just a tip around naming. Okay, so what else can we do here? Well, I could type in a paragraph and say just a little description. Some ideas we had about the new project. Okay, so that is all good. Actually, I'll just switch over here so you can see that happening live and together. So some ideas, okay. Next paragraph. Now this is where we can start to add other content to our loop, other loop components. We use a / and we'll just scroll down a bit here. This is our list of currently available loop components that we can add. So I'm going to add for ideas, a bulleted list is good. So let's do that. Ideas for the new project. Let's go with make a presentation, pitch ideas, develop talk track. All right, you can see that all appearing. This is not really new to us in terms of co-authoring. If you co-author with Microsoft Word, then you're going to see this sort of thing quite frequently. But the difference here is, let's say that I had attached a link to a Word document, and then I'd asked our team members, I'd asked Laura to open up Word, and we start typing in there together. I'm doing this within the conversation, and so it's easy to find, and we can just start on this immediately. So quite cool. As I go a bit further down, maybe some of these ideas are worth assigning tasks. So I can use / and begin to type the word task, and it narrows down the components that I might want to add. So this is a good tip as well for being able to add components quickly. As this list grows over time, you're going to see more and more of those types of loops and different choices available for us to add to our loop pages. Now this is that special kind of table where it is laid out, so it's quite functional. We've got a checklist there. I can assign tasks to that. So maybe I could just copy that over and down into here just to make it a bit easier. And then at mention Laura, assign it to Laura. And you'll see what's happening there with Laura on her side, that I've added it to the table. You'll see on her experience of it that it is bolded and in red so that she can clearly see it. She also got a notification from Teams to say that she's been mentioned in a loop somewhere. So if she was in a conversation here with Matt somewhere, and she saw that notification, she could go into the activity feed, jump in and click in and see, okay, I was mentioned in a loop somewhere, and that jumps directly through to the loop, and we can then scroll through and see, oh, that's where I was mentioned. So that's quite useful. Selecting a date, so we'll just give a week ahead. You can see there's the date, the number of days left to go. One point here to note is the orientation of the date. It is month day. To be honest, I haven't really looked in to see if that's getting its format from the date format that might be set on my OneDrive or my personal settings, but I see that it's American at this stage. Laura can see where I'm working, even in that table. It's a bit like working in Excel. You can see that highlight there. And that's cool. Now, Laura might also go in and just make a few changes here. Develop talk track and collect images for inspiration. So that could be a separate task, but I just want to add that there for now, so that we can just check something else to do with loops. One thing about working together and changing things within a document like this, some people have said when they've looked at loop, oh no, okay, how do I know who has changed what? And when we're contributing to this, Darrell might also change this to pictures. Okay, so that might change the meaning of what we've typed. So who's changed what in this loop? If we have a look at any part of this, we can click into. You can see briefly there that there's a bubble there to show who contributed to this. Then I'll click on the bubble. I can see Darrell, and I can see that Darrell contributed. And as I hover over his name, you can see the portions of that paragraph that Darrell contributed to. And then for Laura, you can see where she has contributed to the line as well. So that it's not quite like tracking changes within Word, but it is quite useful to be able to see those changes at that level. We'll show you some versioning changes there a bit later too. So we've been co-creating ideas and adding some content there. There are going to be other loop components, plenty to look at and to do. But I just want to go on to another concept where this is still a chat between Laura and Darrell. Laura is now going to copy the link to this paragraph. Let's just go back in to see Laura a bit closer. We'll copy that link. Okay. And remember, this link is currently open to be shared with anyone in my organization. She's going to go into the conversation with Matt and we'll post it. Paste that link into the chat. And that gets it ready to send with Matt. Currently, it's just Laura and I in this loop, and it isn't available to Matt yet, much like earlier, until I send it. So I'm going to send that, and then I'll just also write a quick note. Hey Matt, thought you could contribute to this. Cool. So let's have a look. Is Matt over here? Just wake Matt up over on another screen. Matt sees the chat there with Laura, and you'll soon see Matt appear. There he is. And so now there's 3 people in the loop, but 2 separate conversations. So there'll be scenarios like that where you are in a conversation with someone, you've come up with content for the loop, and you're talking about the content in the loop, and maybe you don't want to include other people in the conversation, but you do want to pass it on to someone else to contribute. So this is a good use of it. And so we've got 3 people that have access to the loop. Great. So that's a good demo, isn't it? Right. Okay. Well, let's get back to some of the concepts that we are covering off within Microsoft Loop. I might just pause there and just take a couple of questions there too from the chat. Let's have a look here. All right. So we've got Ross Johnson who asks, is there any relational data or Dataverse for Teams for Microsoft 365 lists that would be a solution? And I think you're talking about the tables there, Ross. Today, the tables are just tables. They don't synchronize with anything else. There isn't any relational database. I see that earlier there, Lauren had compared it to relational databases in Notion. And it is early days today. We're seeing a lot of development around the text experience and the collaboration there, but we're not really certain in terms of the direction they might take with tables and databases, or being able to synchronize those tables into a Microsoft list. My hope is that would be the case, that they would definitely go into that direction. I see that question there from Taz Gray too. This is super cool, he says. And will it work with externals too? And I think you picked up earlier, I mentioned that today it's not available for us to share with external users, but when we have a look soon, I think that one of the reasons that it's good we're saving loop files and loop pages into our OneDrives is so that enables us to share externally with people and have fine controls about who we can share that with, much like we can with our meeting recordings. But yeah, thanks for those questions. We'll take a look at that later as well. Moving along, let's have a look at when we would use Microsoft Loop. So I've showed you an example of where we were in a conversation. Laura and we had some ideas. We listed them. We started to prioritize them and maybe set some tasks up for those. What about, I guess, think of the continuum or the life cycle of an idea. Some of those ideas are quite temporary. Think back to the piece of paper that Brittany and I had when we were sitting. We just sort of started writing down a few ideas and notes together. Could have been a whiteboard, could have been a whiteboard marker on a bus stop. Temporary. And this is an ideal place for Microsoft Loop to be used, where we're forming those ideas. As those ideas develop and we start to loop other people in, like Matt, they become a bit more permanent, semi-permanent, where we're building things out. We're starting to list out things that we might do to research and to gather information. And so that needs another place for, well, that's where the loop to take a bit more life, contributing to those ideas. As we widen this to a larger group of people, where it's not just Matt, Laura, and I, but we will want to bring in other people to help us contribute, then we're certainly coordinating tasks, we're starting to collect information, we're collaborating on things. Maybe we haven't quite yet started creating documents to give this a bit more permanence, but this is where we would start to see some of those Loop workspaces and pulling those things together. This is a fantastic way to work. I really enjoy the ability to work in a canvas and finding the content that I want to bring together for my team, so they don't have to think about which channel, which team, which conversation, and which folder. But I've brought it all together for them and curated it, and they can contribute too. As we get further along, of course, we're going to use our fully functioning tools like PowerPoint and Word and Planner and To-Do and all sorts of other things. So we're going to be able to shift that information over into these applications. And, it doesn't have to stop there. We don't have to stop using Loop there. We can take a link to that document, link to that plan or whatever, bring it back to our Loop page and put it there so it's easier for people to find in that one big canvas. So let's have a look at that in the scenario of planning a presentation. We form some of those ideas, come up with the main talking points and thinking it through. We share that with other people to contribute. Maybe we get a whiteboarding session going and we're drawing up a storyboard of the sort of things we might want to have within maybe a slide deck or something like that. As we get more people involved and we're collaborating, we're getting people to research and come up with other key talking points, we might divide and conquer some of the content so that people can contribute to it. And then we shift it on over to our different tools for presenting, and then we actually present it at an event. And that is the life cycle or the loop for a loop. I think that it has a good use of being able to make things easier for people to continue to work. Think back to the points I was making about hybrid work and that style of being able to work from wherever and whenever, with whomever. It shouldn't really matter. And I think Loop and that canvas way of pulling things together simplifies that. Now, we've had a look at unplanned use of Loop. That was where Laura and I came up with ideas. It was just collaboration in the moment. In that moment of need, we took some notes, we listed some tasks. This really does need us to form a habit around it. That little Loop icon that's there, it's, if you haven't begun to start using it, you might not even click on it. Maybe you have and you'd click on it and wonder, okay, that's fine. But as you start to see the possibilities of how it could be used, then forming that habit is key to getting the most out of this tool. It really does support spontaneous collaborative activity. That's what I enjoy about it. Rather than me looking for that OneNote or trying to find something that we have in common that is already shared, we have a loop that we can use it. And then later on, we can continue to share it and add other people to it. There's planned uses of Loop too, where we are going to intentionally use it. And this is where we start to look at some of the future where Loop is going to be coming to an Outlook meeting, an invite, and being able to add an agenda, notes, and tasks to the bottom of a meeting invite as you're sending it. That's going to be powered by Loop. And so thinking of that and going on ahead to create that collaborative space means in the meeting, you won't be scrambling for that shared OneNote or trying to find that place to add that content. It'll make it easier for people to contribute their ideas during the meeting, and then afterwards to come back to it and maybe follow up with tasks. So we'll have a quick look at that now too. We'll step through the meeting experience. We'll set up a meeting. We'll add the loop to the meeting chat. We'll add an agenda and invite people to add to it as well. We'll maybe add a couple of preparation tasks for people for that meeting, a section for notes and action items. Let's get to it. Okay, let's go to my persona Darrell. So we're now with Darrell, and we'll go into our calendar. And when we set up a quick meeting here, we'll just add expanding on our ideas. We'll add Laura and Matt. And usually I'd put the agenda in the body of the message. It's really where you want to let people know that this is a meeting of value for them to turn up to. So we could do that there, but I just want to show you what we can do today. But we have also seen that below this, eventually we're going to see the option to add meeting notes. So it'll open up another box, and that'll be powered by Loop, and you'll be able to surface those in OneNote. For now, let's just send this meeting off. Now, a meeting doesn't have to stop here at the meeting invite. Much like if we were to send this via email, people can reply to an email and start to have a discussion before the meeting starts. And in Microsoft Teams, we can do the same. We can open up the meeting and then choose to chat with participants. And that takes us through to the meeting chat. Here it is. And so we've got Matt and Laura, they've been invited, and there's our loop icon. So we can add a loop to the chat ahead of time. Now I'm going to do something a little tricky here. I want to continue to tell the story of how we've built out some ideas already. We're just formalizing it a bit. We're going to come together and meet and actually build this out a bit more. So I'm just going to go back over to this view where we can see the meeting on the left and Laura on the right. Laura, let's see, I know that I'm cheating a bit here. I could copy the link from Laura's, but what I'll do is I'll go back to Darrell's experience, and we'll go into the loop component here with Laura. And I'm going to copy the link to that loop. Go back to my meeting chat. And then I'm going to paste it in here. I could start a new loop, but I'm going to just continue that idea so that we have it all together. And we'll send that. Right, so just to tidy this up a bit so that it is useful for our meeting, we've got notes and ideas, so that's cool. I'm also going to just add in an agenda. So we'll do / and we'll use agenda, boom. So that's going to add, it's like a checklist, and we can type in, it's got some guiding text there about what you might do here. So we might just go and review ideas. We'll let Laura lead that, and we'll give that a 10 minutes in the meeting, and then we'll add more ideas. Matt can lead that, and then we'll give that 15 minutes, and then prioritize and assign. And that can be me, I'll lead that, and that can be a 10-minute exercise. Cool. Agenda, we might have some notes, so I'm just going to add just a section called notes. I like to use formatting to be able to make that stand out a bit more, just so it's easier to cast your eye down and see what sections are what. I could probably put in some bullet list here, just so that the notes can be bullet pointed and used there too. And maybe because it is notes from ideas from April 10th. I might just add here agenda for meeting April 10th. So as we cast our eyes down, we know that this is about the agenda, and then there are other related notes. And there is a task list already related to these ideas. And so what I might do instead is just cut and paste that back up to here. Right. So there it is. Interesting. So copying and pasting there, it takes away the hyperlinking or the mentioning of someone in a task. Haven't done that before. Thought I'd just try that on the fly. Good thing about this, I like this table. I can just drag tasks around here too. So I think the task list is quite cool and quite functional. And add another task. Great. So we have add an agenda. We've added a notes section. There could be something that we could just list up here in terms of things to prepare for. What can I do to prepare? Preparation. Again, we'll use a heading. And this might be a numbered list. Right. Review the current ideas and research some of the content. And come with more ideas to add and discuss. So this could be all sorts of things. You could be asking people to read a report, but you're setting the meeting up for success by saying, this is what we plan to cover, and here's the things you can do to prepare. Here's our area for notes, and then at the end of that meeting, we've got some action tasks and things that can come out. Now I'll just stop there. I know that there was a few questions around tasks, and that why would we use a task list in Loop when we've got Planner or To Do? It is about trying to capture these tasks quickly and to get those ideas out on the page. Maybe we're struggling with, okay, well, which planner should we use? Oh, we don't have one. Let's create one. Okay, good. Or we could just be writing them down within a to-do list. Good thing about this, we know that there is a plan to make a task list synchronized to Planner and to do. And that means that the quick tasks that we come up with will be able to be used within one of our fuller, more functional tools. So I'm sure that scenario is going to become clearer over time as we take a look at that. Matt, you've got a question there about how is Loop enabled, and that you can't see it in your teams. It is something that is coming and rolling out. It has supposed to be rolled out to most places, business premium, enterprise, education. I think it might still be coming out to some government tenants. So if that's you, then that might be your situation and why you can't see it yet. Okay. Well, let's good. Let's just cover off a few other things around how to get started. We've seen some good examples of how we might use Microsoft Loop. Let's think about user adoption. Now, I think one of the key things that we can get people started using Loop in is this frequent activity we had, which was meetings. So hopefully I've showed you a good scenario there where, as a meeting organizer, take a little more time and add that loop to your meetings that you have internally so that people can start to get used to seeing Loop available, part of the meeting invite, so it's easy to find before, during, and after that meeting. And you can bring that up in the meeting and start to use it. I'm actually just going to go back and demo one more thing, because we did need to see where the loops are stored, and that's going to help us to understand a bit about the scenario with with using loop and where to find that. I'm just going to go back into that loop that I created with Laura earlier, and we've attached it to the meeting. And I'll click on the name of the loop up here. Now this is taking me through to my OneDrive, and it's opening up the loop in that fuller page. And the reason I remembered to tell you about this is if you're in a meeting and you have attached that loop to the chat, you know how thin the chat is down the right hand side, and the body of the meeting is for presentation of content or for the grid of people. It doesn't really leave a lot of room for loop content in that thin gap, especially when you get down to tables like tasks or tables themselves. It begins to be a bit cumbersome to work within that. So by clicking through to the loop and opening it up here in a separate page, or you might also do this. So we've got the meeting chat here, and when you've launched the meeting, you know that the meeting opens up in a separate window. So you can see the content, you can see the people in the chat, but you know that you can also open the chat in that full Teams window here too. So that gives you more room. So there we go. We've got a place that we can use that loop during our meetings, and that helps with adoption, because there are, challenges and troubles at the moment when we have that loop skinny down in that chat, and also might float up as the chat becomes busy. The other thing about looking at it where it is in OneDrive, if we click on our name of our loop at the top left hand corner, we can change the name of it. I wouldn't suggest you do that today, but you've got the breadcrumb there too of where to find those loops, and it is in my OneDrive and called Microsoft Teams chat files. That's where if you have attached documents and you've shared them, then they're going to be available here in the folder and shared directly with the people in the chat. The loop is just another file, just like if you were uploading a Word document. You're creating that loop, and it is a file sitting here in your OneDrive. It has been shared with Matt, Laura, and myself. You get all the control of it being a file in OneDrive or SharePoint by looking through and seeing some of the activity and all of that roll up there. You can go through and also see version history. So if we open that up, you can see the various different versions and changes that have happened to the loop as we've been working on it. So it's good to be able to go back and see that. Laura was the last to see, and you could open that version and check that out and see what it was at that point. So because it's in OneDrive, because it's in our SharePoint environment, it's going to have all those usual controls that we have over our files. Our governance will be quite happy about that with security and compliance, that you might have policies set up to make sure that files are not going to disappear if someone leaves the organization, that they will be held and retained. So those are some of the things that it will also be able to. While we're here too, the .fluid extension of the file will be changing. It will soon be .loop. So yeah, a few other things that I could say about this. I mean, the whole question of should this be in my OneDrive? Is that really the right place? Your OneDrive or mine? Let's save that for another discussion. But I'm on the side there that I think that this is the right place to have it for private conversations and private meetings where the people have been explicitly invited to the meeting, and it's not really necessarily associated with the team. We do know that in future that the loops will be supported within a Microsoft team, so that's something we can look forward to. But today it's not supported or saved within a Teams channel today. Okay, back to finishing off our user adoption tips. So you've seen meetings, and that I think that's a good example of where to help people get the most value out of it. I've also been adding a loop to one-on-one chats with people in my team, so that again, I'm not looking for a OneNote that we can share together. I just create a loop, we share it between each other, and I even pin that to the top of the chat using that new feature, so it's easy for us to find. So good ideas there. Now, as we finish off, here's some resources that you might find useful to continue to learn about Loop. First of all, it should be in your tenants now. You shouldn't have to enable the Teams public preview, but another place that we are learning and discussing this together as a community is the Microsoft Loop user group. So check that out. All of these will be listed under my short link here for Microsoft Loop resources. So you'll find the link to the LinkedIn group for Microsoft Loop user group. And lastly, I have been pulling together different commentary, resources, learning and guides together in a free Microsoft Loop course. So I'm running that on Teachable. I thought it makes more sense than just writing blogs and creating videos, but to pull it together into something that the whole community can benefit from as we learn together. So you'll find it from there. And that's me. Thank you very much for having me again at the user adoption, Australia Microsoft 365 adoption user group. Did I remember that right, Kirsty? All right. Well, thanks. We'll see you again next time.
That's awesome, Darrell. Thank you. Look, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to still type them into chat. I'm just going to now go through the where do I find, and as part of that, look, what I try and do is I try and bring content in for you to be able to help and support you as a community. I do often move links from even the earlier adoption and presentation and put them down the bottom here so that once I take it away next month, you'll still have them wherever I can. Don't forget, there is lots of great content on Twitter at Microsoft Adoption, different support. Join and subscribe the newsletter with Caruana and that whole learning pathways and what's going on in terms of content there. So there's lots happening. There is collections on the learning collection site with Microsoft Docs. So there's different learning paths, websites, in-person training that you can actually join in. On the adoption resources link, I've put in for you from earlier, which we talked about, some of those team apps that you could drop in, like I talked about the adoption app on GitHub that you could go and get and put in. I've also put in, where is it? Here we go. Demos of the Microsoft 365 applications, so you can plug them into the likes of Teams or send them out as part of training where they can do that asynchronous click through on their own. And I've just done an update in the M365 adoption guide. And did I put in the OneDrive? Is that adoption, some of the playbook in here as well to be able to help you. Okay. So I'll try and bring you more content. I found a bit of another location to help around the what's new with terms of Microsoft support on Docs. So I've put that in there for you. Look, I collate the content across a wide variety of places. As you know, I spend sort of 15 to 20 odd hours at least pulling the content together for you on what's new. That is usually across all of the blogs on Tech Community. Great place to go on all of the latest news and posts. I'll also use Message Center as well as Office actually have their what's new in Office. So I do those Office updates and support, and even in Office itself. So if you go to PowerPoint and you go to the what's new or coming soon, you can go and see from there too. So I will try and pull it in from a variety of locations for you. In terms of the user group, thanks, Darrell. I have dropped in the virtuals for the Loop user group. I've put it into chat as well so that you can actually join Darrell's user group. It is through LinkedIn and running regularly, some really great content if you're wanting to understand Microsoft Loop a little bit more. The past sessions on YouTube, I am dropping in there. So I've put the 2021 in here as direct links of what we've done in the past. And as we update for 2022, I'll put all the links in here as well. So I'll have last month and this month I'll put in. I haven't put last month's in yet, but I'll update that for you so that you've got it there with the link to YouTube. Okay, in terms of what's next month, we're going to meet on the 3rd of May. and I will update fairly soon. Look, if anyone is willing to be a speaker, maybe you've been rolling out a solution or you've got some great results, or you know of anything in particular as a topic you would like, please feel free to put it forward. Loving any suggestions that come along to be able to help you as a community. So on that note, if you've got anything that you want to ask, more than happy to. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, please type them into chat. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. We will see you again in a month's time. And wonderful having you all here and seeing you again. Thanks for joining. Bye, everyone.